Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Skybound Capital's regular podcast series Under the Macroscope. And joining me today on the podcast are Dave Rundle and Jacques Kallis, very familiar to a number of our listeners and viewers of the podcast as arguably one of the most famous cricketers ever to play the game, a supreme all-rounder for South Africa. And there's a very good reason why Jacques is joining us on the podcast today. Dave Rundle's company, RMS Advisory, which used to go by the name Rundle Management Services, but now is RMS Advisory, forms one of the advisory parts of the Skybound Capital Group. And as a group, we are passionate about delivering coherent, sensible financial advice. And Jacques has been a client of RMS Advisory for almost his entire career, and more recently in retirement from cricket he has become an integral part of the team and telling his story around the importance of sound financial planning. So Dave, Jacques, great to have you on the podcast. Jacques, I'm going to start with you because there are so many wonderful analogies to be drawn between success in sport and success in financial planning, and not least the need, in your case, to build an innings, particularly at test match level. And you came into the national side as a very young man. You started to earn, let's say, decent money. And as your career became more successful, you had more opportunities to earn and to look at different investment opportunities. And it's been important for you to build a financial innings, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. Thanks, Matt. I think I was fortunate to come from a little bit of a financial background through my dad working in the industry. So, always gave me the advice to, invest wisely for the future. So, it's managed to get a hold of Davey Rundle when I started playing, and that's probably 20 odd years ago, 25 years ago, somewhere there and thereabouts. Yeah. I've always had an interest in the numbers game and that, so it wasn't a matter of giving Davey my money and saying, here it is, look after it. I always wanted to know what was going on. Enjoyed maths and accounting at school, so it was something I had an interest in, and I knew while I was playing that, I was going to have to do something once I retired, so kind of leaned towards the financial game, and with Dave now trying to learn a little bit more about it, and just to make sure that other sportsmen and other clients know what their plan is, and giving them a little bit of advice as well. So for me it was really important that I knew where I was going financially. I think I knew that I'd retire somewhere in the 30s, and then would probably have to retire again in my 50s or 60s. So to plan for that was really important, and I think some of the best advice that Davey gave me was, it's all in well investing your money, but you've got to have a plan along with it. When are you going to need that money, whether it's for weddings, retirements, or kids' education, second retirement. So that's been a real nice part to know that you've got someone looking after you and really cares not only about your finance but planning it along the way as well. So it kind of goes along with my cricket career in a way. Like you said, test cricket's not about winning the test match in the first session. You've got to plan for those 5 days, and that goes hand in hand with RMS Advisory, which is exactly what the guys do.
Dave, the words plan and planning have come up regularly in Jacques' first answer, and that really is down to preparation. I know a lot of professional sports coaches, for example, they use that expression, if you fail to prepare, then you better prepare to fail. So what are some of those building blocks that you give to clients in order to prepare for their financial future?
I think, Matt, when we go into meetings with clients, they answer their own questions. So when they're discussing it with us, they're actually telling us exactly what they want. They just want it to be put into a format that makes sense. So we see a lot of clients with a lot of investments, but there is no plan. I mean, Jacques, when he started with us, his brief was, I'm going to save. I don't want to lose money. I want compound returns. And that was exactly the way he played. He played like that. He accumulated all the time, and then the interest was making more money on the interest, and he became successful like that. and he's become successfully financial as well. So for us, the plan is the key. What do we do? How do we do it? There's a lot of product out there. Being able to marry the right product with the plan, that's a skill. And we love it. We love dealing with clients. We like helping them. No one client fits all. You have plans accordingly.
Yeah, I was going to say, no one client surely is ever the same. So I'm also interested to know, when you sit with a client for the first time, and as their circumstances change and their lives evolve, what are some of the more common questions that you get asked in that initial stage?
I think the most common question that everybody asks and wants to know is, how much money do I need to retire? I mean, that is everyone's sort of on their mind. It's like playing golf. Jacques likes playing golf now. It's like taking somebody who's on a driving range and putting them on the golf course, saying, okay, now we've got a green to aim at. So we work out how far that green is, and then with there's specific products that you use to be able to get to that green. So I think that is probably the most common question. But then we come across clients that say, listen, here's my stuff, I actually have no clue. Nobody's taken time out to be able to say, is what I've got okay? So we do everything. Our job is to really help people understand what they got, where they're going, and how to get there.
And Dave has mentioned the power of compounding. Some people describe it as the eighth wonder of the world. You cottoned on to that quite early. And as you said, unlike many sportsmen, you actually have taken an interest and you've been fascinated by investment opportunities, Jacques. But how important was starting early for you? And when you look back at your financial success, how proud are you of the fact that you made a decision early? You're not going to squander everything that you have, and you're going to commit to a plan early that has now paid off for you as you move ahead with your life.
Yeah, it was very important. Like I said earlier, my career was probably only at that stage 15 years. I fortunately got up to almost 20. But you plan for those 15 years and you understand that you've got to save as much as you can during that period to last you at that stage, I thought, for the rest of my life, in case I didn't have anything after that. Fortunately, I do, but it was very important. But there's a fine balance as well. I think you've got to set aside an amount that you see yourself investing, reward yourself to keep yourself going along the way as well, and have a little bit of fun with it. But the most important part is putting most of that money away so that you do invest it, for the future, which, I think there's a stat with a guy that invests money from the age of 20 to 30. If he stops after the age of 30, and a guy that starts at the age of 30 invests that same amount, the guy that only started at 30 never catches that guy through compound interest. So it was a lesson that I got taught early on by Dave. Stuck by it. So, nice to know that I've got a head start on a few people by investing early, but, it's also time to get that information out, and, especially the sportsmen, that they understand that it's difficult to catch up if you don't start early. It's all in well spending money and having some fun, which you have to do, but it's really important to make sure that you invest enough so that you can have that compound interest, so that you can be ahead of the game.
Well, it's wonderful to have Jacques as part of our team within the Skybound Capital Group, and also in the broader group we have a former Springbok rugby player, a Rugby World Cup winner in Francois Lowe. And Francois is a qualified financial advisor. Dave, one of the things he loves to say as a piece of advice is live below your means. We often hear people say live within your means or to your means. Francois likes to say live below your means. And I know it's a philosophy that you subscribe to, because you know that there's always going to be that bit extra that you can put to work.
Yeah, I think the key thing, and Jacques illustrated that, was to work out what you're going to save first and then work out what you can play with. A lot of people now, they spend everything and then they'll come to us and say, sorry, we got no money to save. So it's turning the whole thing around. And quite interestingly, you can't, if you're working hard and you earn a certain amount of money, you've got to have a percentage of fund money. Otherwise, it's not worth it. So we will work with clients to say, what fund money do you need? And we actually put a budget to it.
And some clients would definitely need more fund money than others.
There's a lot of clients that need a lot of fund money. But I mean, it's part of the plan. So we actually sit down and we plan it. So they know exactly how much fund money, what's going where. Please give me a report at the end of the month to say I'm doing okay. It's as simple as that.
And what you're referring to here really is balance. You need balance in almost everything that you do.
And the majority of people say, oh, I've got no money to invest at the end of the month. They're spending everything. And to me, that's just discipline, understanding how much money you're making. And the more money you save right at the beginning, the less painful it is at the end, because you've got that compound return.
Let's talk a little bit about risk, and let's go back to the analogy of building an innings. Because in any good plan, and I'll come to you in just a moment, Dave, but first to Jacques, about early on in an innings, you're less likely to take risk. You don't want to give your wicket away, but as you start to see the ball a little better, you might have a go at that wider ball outside the off stump that tempts you early on. You feel more confident about having a go at it. But again, we can apply that here in terms of your attitude towards risk taking when it comes to your investments as part of your bigger plan. Build first, get some good foundations in place, and then be prepared or have the mindset to take a little bit more risk as you grow.
100%. I always said that batting, certainly in Test cricket, is about taking the least amount of risk for the most reward. And that's pretty much similar to the instruction I gave to Dave, in the beginning, that I'm not really a risk taker, and that's my personality. I'd spend too much time away from home in India, in England, in Australia, West Indies, across the world, to now invest that in something where there's high risk to it. So it was certainly the mandate from up front, saying, let's be conservative, let's be clever, let's not lose money, but let's be smart about it. And then once you've got a little bit of money that you've earned and you feel like you can take a little bit more risk, you can play with that, but that certainly isn't the major part of the money. It's a little bit of the fund money on the investment side. So my mandate was always, let's be safe and let's be clever and smart about it, very low risk.
Dave, what's your attitude as an advisor, as a planner towards risk? I mean, presumably there's something which we can call acceptable risk, and that comes as a result of discussing the pros and the cons with a client of a particular investment or something that they have a particular affinity for. But it is an important part of planning, is to discuss the potential rewards, but also the risks that go along with it, and also spreading that throughout a portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, you never want all the tennis balls to bounce in the same direction. So we would always err on the more conservative side to make consistent returns always. I mean, we've come into a situation now this year where the market is down 20% and we're doing fine. Clients have comfort in that. As soon as you say, I can make it 20% and whatever, and things go wrong, you're the first guy to phone and say, like, what are you doing? No matter how well I've explained the situation. So we would always have the foundation to the house first, and then as the portfolio grows, add risk to that. That's sort of our plan. as I say, there's a lot of clients, and there's also a lot of people with different risk profiles. So, but one really has to understand what risk is. I mean, risk is basically the chance of losing money and how much. And we have to make it very clear to clients to be able to explain what that is. We've come through a very difficult phase in the market now where interest rates have been low. So if you're investing money for an older client where you're supposed to be taking less risk, they couldn't live off the interest because interest rates were low. So we were forced to be able to take an acceptable risk to be able to increase the returns for those clients to live. That to us is stressful. That's very stressful because with risk comes ups and downs. But the block, the foundation to the portfolio is critical. We've been around for a long time. We've found product that can do that. And we're actually quite relaxed in an environment which is quite volatile at the moment.
Well, as always, we encourage you to get in touch. If you've got any particular questions that you'd like to put to Dave or any members of his team at RMS Advisory and the broader research group at Skybound Capital, do get in touch using our website, which will be displayed on the screen during the course of the podcast. And if you've got any particular questions, feel free to ask them. If you'd like to put something to the team, which we can put on a future podcast, we would welcome that. And it may not constitute absolute advice, but certainly we will do our best throughout the team to answer any of those queries. Gentlemen, just perhaps one final thing in closing, the importance, and it's coming full circle to where we started really, the importance of a plan. And the importance of not doing nothing in terms of your financial well-being and therefore your mental well-being. We know that finances can be extraordinarily stressful. We've had a really difficult time with COVID. And if anything, it presented us with an opportunity to take stock of where we all are financially and how we should be planning into the future.
Yeah, I agree.
No, definitely. I mean, the other thing that really stood out for me was, I always equate it to an exam. If you study well for an exam, you go into the exam a lot less nervous, you're calmer, you feel like you've got everything covered. But when you haven't quite studied that whole textbook and you walk into the exam, you're a little bit more nervous and you're a bit worried. And that's the feeling that I kind of get with Dave, that they do their research. I feel very comfortable with them handling my money. I'm never worried. They've studied for the exam, they know what's going to come. And if there is a little hiccup along the way, they've planned for that. So, you sleep a lot better at night knowing that.
Yeah, Dave's only 35. You can see the weight of the responsibility on your shoulders. But I know it's a responsibility you take really seriously.
Yeah, very much so, Matt. I mean, and what's interesting is the plan never it changes all the time. So right throughout your life, the plan will change. Circumstances change, investments change, your situation might change. You might be married, kids, retirement. Those things change, and we have to change with them. So we hold our clients' hands in the process. We've been doing it a long time. We're still learning all the time, but we care, which is important, and we have the ability to be able to put those plans together.
I think the other thing that stands out for me is, the client's not a number with Dave. The client's a name, and he cares about every single client. And I think that's the one thing that really stands out about RMS Advisory, is that the guys really care. They really do.
Well, it is a deeply personal topic. It's great to have Dave and to have Jacques as part of the broader Skybound Capital Group and part of the team at RMS Advisory. As I mentioned earlier, if you've got any queries, any questions, any things that you'd like to pose to the team that perhaps have been keeping you up at night, do feel free to get in touch, and we'll be certain to have another advice themed podcast on Under the Macroscope in the not too distant future. You can download the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or the Google podcast platform for Android, and all past editions of Under the Macroscope are available at Skybound Capital's website, which is www.skyboundcapital.com. To Jacques, to Dave, thank you very much for your time and your insights. Until next time on Under the Macroscope, from all of us, cheerio.